Three, two, one, here we go. Hello, YouTube. Today's gonna be pretty much a continuation of like last week's stream. It's a coloring demonstration. So today I'll continue to go over flatting. I'm pretty much at the same place where we left off last time, so this will just be more progress on the same pick. And so like I'll maybe cover, going over stuff with like different shading in a little more detail. But yeah, so I'm just gonna continue to flat this thing. Any questions that pop up, feel free to ping me in the Discord chat. Otherwise, I guess we're all set. So let's just go. I'm gonna get back to my unrelated flats. And I'm going to use a lavender this time. Because that's the opposite color. I don't know, I used unrelated colors for these flats. Helps you think a little bit more about value. So those are linked to the inks. So what the heck happened there? Oh, they're still under the correction layer. Right. Oh, I did something to that earlier. Huh, how about that? Alright. I turned down the close gap there just because it might not be doing me right now. And if you ever find yourself with like a gap that you forgot to close for whatever reason, you don't necessarily have to go back to your inks. Just switch to like a hard brush of some kind. And just kind of finish out the line that way. That way you can swap back to your fill tool and not have a problem keeping stuff separate. These colors are all going to be roughly the same. So I'll come back and close off this line like that. Come back in with that from underneath. Yeah, since we see a little bit here, I might as well go back. Make sure that that looks okay. Alright. Should really have things laid out a bit better. Whoops. actually going to have two colors. I didn't line that out, though, properly. So I'm just going to lay down something that feels okay. I'll clean up these stray pixels every once in a while. Alright, that's looking more and more like I want it to. Oh yeah, here's a problem. I drew this line through that. I never corrected that. This will be one place where I'm going back to the inking layer. And, well, what do I want to do with it? Oh, so they all flattened to there, okay. So then I should just be able to, yeah, and it's raster now. Alright, wonderful. Alright, back to my unrelated flats. Paint those spaces in. Not good that I'm doing this, but little imperfections that bother me. I feel like I've got to do something about them, you know? Alright. Oh, whoops. Wrong layer. That's another useful thing about Clip Studio Paint is that if you assign your inks, a layer color, so like here in this layer property tab right here, you can set the expression color to gray or monochrome. And if you set your inks to gray or monochrome, you won't have to worry about coloring over your ink layer, because anytime you have your ink layer selected, you select like a bright color or something like that, and then you start to lay it down, like on accident, it'll come out wrong, and you'll be like, oh, what's going on right there? Why is my red turning out so gray? And then you'll realize you're on your inking layer, and you can immediately undo that sin. So that's a nice little thing. What am I going to do with this area? Well, this is the same piece of furniture, so to speak. It is a combination bookshelf table alchemy set. Because why not? It can be whatever the hell I want it to be. Can colors determine the era or time the object is supposed to exist in? Very vibrant colors, does it give it a 70s vibe? No. I mean, you can kind of have palettes inspired by, stuff from an era or something like that. But typically I don't think of colors as like affected by time. But I mean, that might just be my perception. So like maybe someone has a different example, like, oh, this weird color palette that you're doing has a very 80s vibe or whatever. Like, I don't know. That doesn't necessarily jive with my interpretation of color, but like, people interpret color in different ways. So if Whoops, that's not good either. It's not what I wanted it to be. I should do a close gap here. Yeah, I'll come back in here with the hard brush. Just sometimes get into those tight corners, but usually if you're working at a big enough resolution, it doesn't affect it. But yeah, if you wanted to, if you wanted to give a time, like if you want to limit your picture to like an era, definitely create a vision board or something that reflects that what you really want. What am I gonna do here? A weird, rich brownish. Because this isn't the real thing. We're just gonna smack that color in there. And the whole thing, we'll get to it later. You can color details however you want. Close gap is still on there. I'm gonna do these all the same color because I don't want these elements distracting from the dragons. So maybe I'll figure out some way to make these elements interesting. I just don't want them distracting. So do them just like a warm brown. Oh, yeah, looks like I made an area and did not close the gap there. That's okay. Come back in with the pixel brush. Swap back to the fill tool and do it all over again. And especially if you've got areas of like tight hatching here. I was being kind of stupid earlier with the fill tool, but you can just come in there and brush over it. Fill tool's not going to do what you want there. So just go in and lay the color down manually. Maybe it'll do what I want here, or maybe it won't, because there's some imperfections that I'm spotting in here for the first time. Oh well. We shall see what happens. I'm going to turn my close gap down, or off there. Whoops. Turn that off. And again, switch back to the brush here, because some things just don't like to behave. That's okay, we'll paint over them anyway. All of those errors duplicated in my other inking layer. that is going to be a pain if it comes back up. Oh, see? I just did the thing. I'm laying down the brown. I'm like, what's going on there? Go back to your flats. Don't color over your inking layer. It's always good to have a backup system in case something fails. So setting up color expressions on your layers will help with that. Okay, I'm going to come back in with kind of a peachy tone on these things. 'Cause why not? Welcome to whoever just joined. Not a whole lot going on, just more of the demonstration of flatting right now. Continuing from last week. I'll maybe get to some other stuff. Yeah, this stuff is all kind of samey. If I decide I want to get creative with it, I can later. But for right now, we can have it just be its own category. Lab equipment. And then we can come back to, we can pull the focus back to it later. Because we carried, because we colored everything the same, we can select aspects of the picture. Wasn't responding there for a second. That was weird. I do want the tank to be its own element, so I think I'm gonna make it its own thing. And then these. What am I gonna do with these? I have yet to use a green, so I will come in there with a green. And I'll get all these little pegs here too. The knickknacks and doodads. Ah, you're fine. Disconnected for a little while, you're just okay. Everything is peachy keen. I missed a knickknack there. And then I'm just going to do the same thing to this, because that's a similar enough element that I'm okay to group them together. And why not? This is far away enough that I can just kind of say, hey, that's its own thing. Alright, cool. Let's throw back on the saturation correction. Huh, that's pretty neat. So maybe I'll come back in here. Does this make a difference? Does that make a difference? Oh, wait. I'm not on the thing that I wanted to be on. that's what's going on here. Yeah. So if you go in with white, it does that. And then if you erase it, it does that. Okay. So if I wanted everything nice and consistent with my hue correction mask. Actually, the only place that I really wanted it applied was down here, because that's the only area that made that better. I might apply another layer mask, but I think for now, I think for now I'm just gonna keep everything down here its own thing, and then everything up here can be masked out. I'm just going to do everything up here in a mask anyway. Use a big, broad brush. There we go. Maybe this can be part of the masked out element. Oh, whoops. I need some close gap there, apparently. There we go. We're using the fill tool to fill these spaces and mask them out. Just kind of painting our mask directly on the layer. Okay, how's that look now? Oh, I'm still showing the mask area. That's what's screwing up the color. Let's see here. Yeah, uncheck show mask area. There we go. And that brings back to the original unrelated flats except for the masked area that I've used my hue mask on, because I happen to like the effect that happened there. And we can invert the mask or whatever. I think you can do that. I don't know, maybe you can't. Maybe I'm full of baloney. But anyway, so it looks like we got this image mostly filled out with unrelated flats. So that's great. We'll come back in. Dismiss this pop-up. We'll come back in. And I will throw on, I've got my black and white correction layer here, so I can look at the values again. And so I can see that things are not so samey, so that's good. But yeah, so now I can duplicate the layer, and it applies another because that mask is still applied to the same area. So I'm wondering if we can invert the layer mask. Oh, we can't just delete it. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Well, anyway, let's go back up to related flats, and we'll pick out. We can use our magic wand tool to select, and we can mess with the settings here so that we're selecting an entire. Oops. We're gonna have to use a refer mode, won't we? Or maybe we'll just go back to the layer. There we go. And then I've selected this entire thing here, right? I've selected everything that is this kind of like periwinkle lavender color, whatever. So that's unrelated, and then I can go over to related and do a shade of orange like I like. And since it's all selected, I can just go in there, swipe it, swipe it, swipe it. And then I can go back, swap back over my tool, select another layer color. So that's supposed to be seen behind? What happened there? Those look the same to me. But maybe they're not. I don't know. Stuff's weird. I'm going to go back in there and select... I'm going to select a white from my palette, except I'm going to shift it over to the yellow spectrum, just ever so slightly. And then I'm going to do the same thing back to related flats. Cool. Yeah, looks like I didn't get every area. But that's okay. Oh, did I select the same green there? I did. Well, whatever. So if I select this back, yeah, I got the eyes as well. Whatever, as long as they're separate elements, it's usually not a huge deal. So we'll go back in there. Swap over to a brown for these. I think that's what it is anyway. You ever forget the color scheme of your own characters? Is that hashtag relatable? Yeah, I do have moments when I mess with the sliders too. To answer your question, Skit. Yay, I'm not alone. Let me pull up my references again. This had the silver eyes. Back when I was super fond of silver. Well, I still am. I need to pull up another reference image. Maybe I'll open up another Clip Studio file just for fun. Let's see here. Sorry, you're not going to be able to see this for a little bit, but let me up this one. This one's one of my favorites. Yeah, that's right. I went for more of the super red, orange, and brown there. Let's see if I still like that. I shall pick the color from its source. And then I'll go back. Make sure that I select these yellows here. Yeah, I did that the same color too, but that's okay. These elements are far enough apart that I can swap over to elements are far enough apart that I'm not going to have to worry about like painting my eyes and this thing the same color necessarily, so. Whoops. Deselect that. That purple hair though. Oh my god. I'm just going to color pick. Swap back to my flats. Color pick all of that. Swap back to my related flats. Scribble over it. And then you can just make this into a kind of process where everything that you've selected, common color elements, will be commonly selected. So I can go back here, and whoops, I moved that because I didn't swap tools. There we go, and it's much closer resembling the colors, the character colors, the color characters, the character of the colors. I think that should be that one. So I'm gonna, yeah, go back to unrelated flats for a moment and get that back. But yeah. So, turning back on my hue saturation thing. Maybe I want my character here to be a little bit brighter, and then everything in the background to be a little bit darker. So there are more things that I can do. Because what well, or maybe I like the contrast between the characters. We've got kind of a lighter bluish color here, and then the kind of a darker orange color up here. I don't know. We'll have to go back in and like really see how it works out. But it's just you know, this turning black and white is just a useful tool to have for looking at the values in your composition, which will be more important as you get to like the super shading parts. But yeah. So I am going to go back in, and I'm going to go back in and shade with my different shadows, because I rather like doing that. So let me see if I have the right color here. If I don't, yep, that's going to be, oh, maybe it was right there. It was indeed. Okay, so this was like one of the, this is like the not quite black. And shading with it on a difference layer is going to be very subtle. Whereas if you get closer to grays and whites, it'll be more directly opposite of the color that you're going for. And just to kind of explain it a little, going like a straight black on a difference layer makes no difference. So like I can kind of scribble there all I want, and it doesn't do anything to this layer, and it actually erases some of the stuff from last time. So you want to make sure that you're choosing something with some color. Or then if you go over with a white, it literally is the inverse color of the color wheel. So yeah, I'm going back in there with my 12-12-12 black, and I'm just gonna go at it with my hard pixel brush for a while here. And just kind of making sure that the areas of shade and so forth make sense. So I'm doing kind of I'm assuming kind of a classical lighting, like a lighting from the top left of the image, in which case there's going to be a shadow coming out that direction from the rest of the neck. And then perhaps the body is curving away from that at that point. You can go back in with your eraser and erase those lines if they're not working for you. Which, like, fire things if they aren't working for you. You can say, like, hey, you're fired. I'm not using you anymore. Probably go back in there. The way I've got this set up is that it's this brush setup is that it's locked to whatever size that I set it, like to the screen itself. So regardless of my zoom, the brush is gonna stay the same size. That's just one thing that you can do with brushes that is kind of neat. Kind of smooth these out a little. And make sure that I'm capturing some contour of the form so it looks like I don't have any stabilization on. That might be my problem. Stabilization feels like cheating, but it's not cheating. Turn it up, use it, make it work to your advantage. There we go. Oh, look how smooth those lines are. Those are some attractive lines. And I'm being a bit of a coward here when I should go make these lines a little bit thicker. Because I'm using such a subtle since I'm using such a subtle color here, it's going to be, whoops, excuse me. Since I'm using such a subtle color difference here, I might go in and like reinforce some of this shading, so I can use a thicker, bigger brush to make kind of bolder lines. And then that kind of curls underneath, so that actually makes sense. So that's what I'm going to do there. It's going to be a bit of a bicep shape there, so I will keep that. Oh, and then got to figure out the wings and stuff. And then you can do the same thing to your, if you want to make sure that you're constraining the shading to the character, you can go back in to the unrelated flats and just select it. That's one of the reasons we do this, so we can add the entire color scheme of the character to the selection. There we go. And now we've got our entire color, our entire character selected, so we can move back to our shadows layer and maybe not worry so much about bleeding over onto the edges here. Let me use kind of a bolder color so you can see what I'm talking about. Smoothness is on. Smoothing is on, so it makes things a little bit slower. But yeah, you can see the slight difference there. So since it's lit from the top left, we're going to have a little bit of over here. We might have more over there. So I can be less afraid to use a bigger, kind of broader stroke there. And since this entire area is covered by a wing, you can kind of infer that this entire area is going to be under some shadow. Maybe it's catching the light right there at the tip of the wing. But I want the rest of this in shadow. It's my picture, I'll do what I want. I'll come back in here and make sure that the knuckles are rounded off. And maybe turn my stabilization down because I'm not doing as careful work right now. Oh, some things that I didn't select. Oh well, that happens. Come back in here and make sure everything's like a fairly subtle shadow. What might we do? We might say some light sneaks in. Kind of guessing here. That's okay. Come back in. And then if that overshadows that some, maybe just do that entire area. Maybe not the entire area. I flip-flop. You're allowed to do that as an artist. Change your mind. Change your mind constantly. But try and be consistent about the way that you're changing your mind, you know? Because it can be annoying. Someone that's changing their mind constantly for no discernible reason can be kind of annoying. Have we known people like that? Oh, you were liking the purple earlier? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll try out that color another time. Alternate Persona color scheme. Those are fun. Can be fun. Alright. I'm gonna say that that's tilted enough that you're not gonna be able to see that. I'll come back into the tail there, give that a nice big darker shade. And maybe over here too. Whoops. I selected a different color on accident. Oh well. There we go. And then maybe some on this side. Oops. And there's going to be a cast shadow from this knee, probably. Contour to the form. Let's deselect it and see what we've done. Maybe the shading doesn't quite make sense on the arm here. We can say that a shadow's cast over this kind of part. I don't know, there's a lot to figure out here. Creative lighting. Be creative in your lighting choices. If you're like, maybe this doesn't quite make sense, your instincts are usually correct. So maybe if that's in shadow, it's casting everything here in shadow. So it's going to be... shading might be more like that. Undo, redo, undo, redo. Yeah, we'll maybe go back in there and reinforce some shadows later, but that seems more or less correct. We can do something kind of similar up here. So we'll go back to select our unrelated flats, adding colors to the character, because we want to select the entire guy. Whew, excuse me. Alright. And come back in here. Whoops. Yep, that's our unrelated flats that we selected and painted over accidentally. You want to make sure that you catch yourself doing that. Okay, maybe I don't want such a subtle difference. I want something a little more intense. There we go. This character's standing up more in the light, so I'm using a slightly lighter dark. A slightly lighter black. I don't know. It's something. Bit of a cast shadow on the wings. Maybe not all of the wings. We'll go back in there. It rounds off a bit there. Maybe I should turn my smoothing up. It's going to be lit from up there. There's going to be some shadow going on here, some going on there. On the underside of the arm too. Around the ear. It's going to have an underside there. Here we go. And under each of these. Frill spiky thingies. To give the ear some shape, you know? Maybe go back in here with the hair some. Definitely come back in here. Yeah, this reminded me of this one thing you gotta be kind of careful of, like going over grays with a difference layer can be kind of wonky. So like if there's a legitimate like gray shadow or shady or something going on there, want to be careful, especially if it's not colorized anyhow. It looks like I chose kind of a colorized one for this, so this is not too bad. If I'm going over the face, I can put in shadowing above the eyes, because that area kind of caves in above the eye. Maybe something in the nose. Maybe some on the fingers here. Oh, I never colored that. Those will be things too. Those will be times as well where you'll be like, oh, forgot to color that bit. I'll have to come back to that. And that's okay. Nope. Don't like what that did. But I do like what that did to a point. And you can come in, make decisions, go back, make changes. It's one of the beauties of working digitally. Oh, looks like that selected a lot more than I thought it would. Oh, 'cause the browns, right. Shoot. Oh well, whatever. Alright, and we got now a slight color difference. And if I wanted to intensify that, say like I wasn't satisfied with this, I could always go back and duplicate the layer, and it would come back in even darker. So that's something that you can kind of do. And then if you really like that, you can use Control E to flatten, but that didn't. That destroyed all my work. Why did it do that? Okay, whatever. I'll have to figure that out later. But yeah. I don't like it that dark necessarily, but there we go. Pictures seeing some progress as far as like being cell shaded in a way. You know, I can probably come back and do some like color, like softer airbrush looking things, but honestly, I don't think that goes very well with my particular style. Maybe someone could pull it off, or maybe I'm just not practiced enough. I don't know, but yeah. So that takes up most of my time here. Were there any more questions? I'll just kind of continue to field questions while I'm here. Just try and tighten up some stuff on the characters, maybe. This is going to be a bottom half. It's a rather big and thick tail. It's the way I like them. Yeah, that's probably not going to have very much light at all, will it? And now I'm being a little sloppy, but whatever. Maybe there are multiple light sources. I don't know. Stuff's going on. Don't judge me. Judge me all you want. I don't care. I don't know. I hope this was at least somewhat instructive. Sorry if I was silent for most of it, but yeah, there's more examples of flatting and coming back in and shading with a difference layer. Um, Again, I do that because it keeps the colors a bit richer. So yeah, there's without. There's kind of like our regular flats, or at least somewhat progressed flats. And there's a bit of shading on top of it. So I hope that looks better. Uh, I think it looks better, personally. I hope you think it looks better. If you don't, well, whatever. Um, I'm working on it. But yeah. Alright, I think I'll call that it for this particular recording, because we're almost at an hour. But yeah, so we'll wrap it up for the YouTube audience. Thank you so much for watching. Those of you on YouTube, if do the YouTube things if you like, subscribe or whatever. For those of you in the Discord channel, I will continue to see you and field a couple questions. I've got a plate of food here that I gotta eat, so I'll mute my mic a bit. But yeah, if you have questions, feel free to type them up in the chat. Alright, that's it for this recording. Bye, everybody on YouTube.